Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm your host, Peter Hahn. Welcome to another episode for the Noise Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. I think specifically the hip hop and the dance community are going to be extremely excited to hear about her story, about her journey. To me, in my opinion, she is a very distinct figure that represents persistence, consistency, and courage as far as pursuing what she really loves at heart. So, without wasting any time, I'll let you go ahead, introduce yourself to the listeners, to the viewers.
Wow, that was a lovely intro. What's up, y'all? It's Kosi Eze. I don't know what to say. Dancer, artist, creative, out of Mississauga, representing Toronto, living out in Montreal at the moment. And yeah, just heavy in street dance and hip hop culture and representing Canada on a global
Wow.
scale.
So, all the above. Makosi,
Yeah.
it's welcome again. It's honestly, like, I'm very happy to see you. I think it's been too long,
Yes.
probably like 2, 3 years,
Something like that.
something like that.
Yeah.
I'm excited because one, I get to catch up with you, how you've been doing, and I feel like you have a special story that I don't know, and that a lot of people can learn from as far as really like pursuing with the stuff that you love, in terms of professionally or just kind of believing in yourself. So, how you been? You know what you've been up to?
Loaded question. I guess over the past year, I've been a part of a dance company that actually, when we last saw each other, I was telling you that that's something I was going off to pursue. At the time, it was on a whim, you know. I got a phone call, and it was sort of the culmination of years of hard work knocking
Yeah.
on my door. And I had these feelings of just conflict,
Yeah.
thinking that I had something nice, something solid in the city, in Toronto, that I was growing attached to. But then also understanding that I needed to answer this calling, something that I really do feel through dance that I'm meant to be doing, and be an example.
For sure.
So I left on a whim, packed my bags, moved to Montreal as of January 2021, and I can honestly say it's the best thing I've ever done.
And we're gonna dive into that. Why it's
Yes.
the best thing.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Your main dance style is hip hop,
Yes.
right?
Hip
And
hop freestyle,
hip
house
hop
dance.
freestyle, right?
Yeah.
And how long? I don't think I've ever asked you how long you've been doing it.
Well, as of September 2022, sorry. I moved actually January 2022. It's a new year, pardon me. As of September of last year, it's been 10 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Everyone, congrats on the 10 years. Uh, 10 years,
Yeah.
damn. Okay, well, we're gonna dive into those 10 years in a bit. I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
I like to call it the exposition of the Kosi story.
Okay.
So, reason being is I don't think you and I had an opportunity to really sit down and like talk about, okay, like where did you come from, where were you born, like what's the early life look like prior to where you are at now.
Yeah.
So really, like, run us through where you come from, where you're born, and what the early life of Kosi looked like.
Okay. I guess I could say that I was born, first of all, in a small city, Enugu, Nigeria, West Africa, to my mother and father, 6 kids. You can imagine I'm the middle child, so it's all handy dandy. But being Nigerian, there's just so much culture around you at every junction. And I wouldn't understand how important those instances of just celebration and music and life would be until I came
Right.
to this career that I've chosen for myself.
Right.
But, you know, as a young child, I formed my consciousness around these things, the music that made the richness of the history of Nigeria as a whole.
Yeah.
My parents did a great job of making sure that there was just always music playing at home, not because of anything more than just this is what we do, this is what we enjoy. You know, never thinking my child is going to end up dancing or whatever, right? So there's that. You grow up, you kind of go through the gears, school. It's just normal life. But I will say that there was something about also growing up in an environment where everybody looked like you for as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
And being able to pinpoint a city, a town, and going, if you go past that tree, down this road, and right there at that gate, my family has lived in that place
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
There's something grounding and rooting about that. And again, like I said, I would never understand the importance of knowing that until I began dancing.
Yeah.
But then, you know, at 13, I moved to Canada.
But then when you moved,
Yeah.
did you experience any culture shock or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's hard not to.
Right.
Like I said, all I've ever known was my people,
Yeah.
right? And to move at such a pivotal time, 13 is monumental.
For sure.
To move at that time was to like shake every foundation that I thought I knew,
Yeah.
right? And to move to a place where you become the minority essentially,
Yeah.
you know, suburban Mississauga.
Yeah.
Schooling is different. Just life in general, ways of knowing, all of that. So it took me a long time. Honestly, I'm just coming into myself at 28 years of age.
Yeah.
At the moment. There's just things that in that time, in that span, I had to unpack and that were happening to me that I had no control over, right? But yes, the answer is yes. Major culture shock.
Yeah. Then how do you? I feel like 13. That's a young age to experience culture shock. What was your way of kind of like, okay, let me try to adapt. How do I overcome this shock that I'm feeling right now? You know?
Oh, that's a good question. I always found that I had an affinity for media, film, you know, TV, cartoons. MTV was pivotal for me,
Yeah.
right? You know, it just informed me. Even though you could say it was trash television. For someone like me who's coming, again, from a place where I'm like, what? This was my way in. It was access point.
Right.
Popular culture.
Yeah.
And then eventually hip hop culture, rap, the music, the dress, the dance. You know, I think things like music videos, like Hype Williams music videos,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
They would come to just be a part of me, you know? And then, like I said, I would recall moments before that
Yeah.
that were monumental. I would help my brother make mixtapes on cassette, like things like that, or like the artists my sisters would listen to all the time, the artists my parents would listen to.
Yeah.
It's just like a big cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely television and books
Yeah.
and film, they really helped me along.
Yeah. And then how did you, I guess, obviously, you know, media, music, sounds like you started for music. How did that transition into like dance? You know what I
Dance.
mean? I think it's shocking to me how like, a young kid can just pick up music and really like dive into that and kind of incorporate that into like dancing. Right? I feel like a lot of people just kind of look at music as music. I feel it, but it's not really something that you can easily take it to another thing, another
No.
new subject, right? So
No, it's its own thing. It's niche. Absolutely. I feel that in the understanding of music, I kind of just let it lead me.
right,
right? You know, the visuals to the music videos. Then I'm watching the backup dancers. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know? But specifically, I remember being in high school, and like I said, dance and movement is already a thing where I'm from. But, you know, those are the days of like skinny jeans and the
Yeah.
reject and finger tuts, you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
on YouTube, America's Best Dance Crew, all of that fun stuff. So as kids, this is what we loved. And there was other this other dude that lived in my complex, and he was just really dope.
Yeah.
He's a great dancer. And I don't know, something about being around him, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. We
Yeah,
ended
yeah.
up going to the same high school, and we would just have these like, what I didn't understand were like ciphers or sessions at the
Right.
time in the hallway.
I mean,
This is gonna sound like a fairy tale, but the captain of the dance team of my high school just happened to be walking past that hallway
like a movie.
that day.
Wow.
And said, yeah, I need you on the dance team. I need the both of you on the dance team.
Damn.
And I think the video's somewhere. It's atrocious. I'm never gonna show it to you, but just maybe I'll show it to you.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
But
you
not
know,
to the...
no, we don't need that. But yeah, it played out like a movie. This captain ended up knowing my older sister who went to the school. So my older sister vouched for her. It was
God.
just a whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I end up being a part of this dance team, and it's mostly just choreography and with bits of freestyle in between. But that was sort of like my access point into the dance that was tied to the music.
Right.
You know, of course, with the budding YouTube and all of this. But yeah, like that moment is etched in my memory as kind of the beginning of this whirlwind
Yeah.
thing.
At that point, though, in your mind, was this like, I like doing this, I'm having fun? Or did you kind of deep down have this feeling like, maybe I want to do this like in the future? Or did you have other dreams on the side, outside of dancing?
You know what? I think the culture shock made it that I just wanted to belong,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And because at a young age, you just don't know what it is that, you know, makes you you or what's magnetic.
Yeah.
And in those spaces, in those dance spaces, in those hallways of that high school was the first time I felt like people were drawn to something that I had to say or do.
Right. So dancing allows you to leverage in a way for you to be like, okay, like I really belong here now. Like people are, see me as just the same.
I'm a part of it.
I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Right, right.
You know, it's not to say I felt like an outsider, but I definitely felt like my origins were completely different from the rest of my schoolmates or whatever. And I knew though at my young age that I didn't want to let that go where I'm from.
Right.
Nobody ever taught me that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the fact that when I went home, our culture was so prevalent.
Yeah.
You know, we still spoke our language. We still ate the same meals. We still talked to the same people. Family is huge,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think that was super important in me understanding that this is something you have to keep. And that dance space was the first time I felt like I could take that part of me and
Right.
this new interest,
Yeah.
this thing that makes people want to be around me and
Yeah.
just consolidate the two. So, yeah.
Literally tying your culture and this culture together.
Right.
But then I guess once you kind of get into the dancing now, did you ever think about like maybe I want to take a class or a session? I kind of want to learn more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this same high school, we would all travel all the way down to Toronto together. I remember taking a crump class and thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
This is insane. You know, feeling out of place just because, again, I've been removed from that comfort of like, these people know me. They think I'm tight already, and now I'm in a class with people who are equally tight, right? And it's like, oh, dang.
0.0 all over again.
You're
Yeah.
like, ah. But I also needed to feel that because that's what this career is. You're always going to be in a space with somebody who's better than you or more knowledgeable than you. So I definitely felt like us going together as a unit, taking that small home and bringing it around. Yes, it was uncomfortable to be in those rooms at a young age, but then it also gave us like the courage because we had each other,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to the Toronto dance scene. There was a small studio called Right Foot Dance Studio. All my dancers know, on St. Clair, right next to the McDonald's or a couple doors down. It was like a small studio,
Right.
but that's where it all kicked off.
Yeah. How did you find comfort of being uncomfortable?
I'm competitive.
Right.
I'm really competitive.
You're like, you see someone killing it. You're like, I could do that.
I'm like, next time I got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's also because I have so many siblings.
Yeah.
So you learn when to assert yourself and when to back
Back
off.
off, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so definitely I think the competitive nature. I also played sports, so
That already boosts us to the next level.
I was like, I'm doomed,
Yeah.
you know. So to find something where I could be creative and also be athletic and,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is great. But it wasn't always smooth sailing, right?
Right.
Even if you love it, doesn't mean that your parents are supportive
Yeah.
or we've all felt that as creatives at some point or the other. Well, I don't mean to speak for everybody else, but I've definitely felt that. So yeah, it was tough going because now you're feeling confident. You're
Yeah.
like, this is me.
Yeah.
I love this community. I'm being accepted slowly
Mm-hmm.
but surely. But then you're going home to the place that's supposed to feel like
Yeah.
your rock
Yeah.
and you're not feeling rooted.
Yeah.
And there's just turmoil
Yeah.
and conflict. So it's very interesting, that feeling, but persistence,
For sure.
because I was like, I'm good at it.
Yeah.
Well, at first I didn't know. People had to convince me that I was good.
Yeah.
But then after that, I was like, oh, cool.
Was this when people started telling you like, okay, you're really good?
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking like, okay, maybe I could like take this seriously? Is that kind of like the point in life where you're like, okay, let me build my craft, you know?
I think the first moments where I was like, I can take this seriously was one when I won my first like solo event, like
Yeah.
competitive like
First
battle.
ever.
And I was like, hey, yo, this is a good feeling.
Yeah.
I want to feel like this a lot. So I'm going to have to be good.
Right.
Like really good.
Yeah.
And then also I started to get the recognition of some of like the older heads, people who are more established. And they're coming up to me and making comments about my spirit, essence,
Yeah.
substance, something that they weren't seeing at the time in a lot of the young dancers. And like I said, from being young and where I'm from, I understood the importance of those things. So
Yeah.
if someone who's been doing this thing that I want to do is coming up to me and saying,
Yeah.
you've got it, how can I question them? You know,
Yeah.
it's not possible. Yeah. So lots of those moments just compounded, and I can name so many names of people who have like really pushed me and where those access points, but yeah, you know who you are.
Did you ever have that conversation with your family, your parents, where you're like, okay, I found what I want to do, and even like telling them about like, guess what I won?
Oh my gosh, yes. Of course. I've had so many conversations. Well, they're not conversations. It was more so like, I'm doing this thing. You know, as a
Yeah.
young kid, you're bullheaded.
Just
You're
a
like,
heads up.
yeah, I'm doing this
I'm
thing.
doing this.
I'm going to be out till 2 a.m.
Yeah. Peace.
And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You know? But I remember being a part of Team Canada for a major event back in 2016. It was called Keep On Dancing, KOD. And I told them, I'm going to LA as Team Canada,
Yeah.
team of like 16 people. And it was a big deal for me because I don't know, can't remember how old I was. And I was like, there's a live stream. I hope you watch it.
Yeah.
Like every part of me wanted them to watch it for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, I had the jersey that said my name, a number on the back. Like, it was a big deal.
It is. Yeah.
So yeah, in that moment, I was like, this is what I want to do. If I can be on that stage at, not even 4, 5 years into really taking this seriously,
Yeah.
then imagine what I could do,
Right.
excuse me, if I really put effort and
Yeah.
time into cultivating it, and actually recently we had a show in Toronto and my whole family was there.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. Was there any point where your family was like, I don't know, like rethink this? Because I, at least even for myself, and I feel like a lot of not just dancers, but creative entrepreneurs, like especially coming from an immigrant family, there's this status quo of we're coming to a westernized country for
Yeah.
one reason only,
Yeah.
is to get a stabilized traditional job,
Yeah.
just have your family and do that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like I have my family talking about that all the time. Like I tell them like maybe maybe I don't want to live a corporate life. Maybe I want to do full-time 3D modeling. And they're like, I mean, it's up to you, but we don't really like that idea.
No.
And I don't know. Obviously, it might be different for your family, but I'm just curious if you had any time where they're like, "Are you sure?" Or like,
There's so many points of contention, so many fights, so many arguments, because at the end of the day, they want what's best for you. And I think the more mature I become, the more I understand that that just comes from a place of care.
yeah, for sure.
But when you're young, you don't see that. All you're hearing is, how do you say? You're hearing rejection. You're being, it's conflict.
Yeah,
You're being pushed against. And so because you're young and all you're seeing is you're tunnel visioned in a way. You're like, no, this is the way forward. I'm doing it. And
yeah,
you can't see sort of the intention behind what they're saying. And for my family, specifically my parents, my siblings were super supportive. They think I'm cooler.
yeah,
But, they went through so much to bring all of their kids
yeah,
at the same time to this westernized, for stability,
yeah, yeah,
for comfort, for you to have the option to have a better upbringing than they did, not to go through the same struggle that they did.
yeah,
So for you to decide that you're going to choose something that's not stable, it kind of feels like it's tough to take.
yeah. It is.
So the more I mature, the more I understand that. The more I understand that, they really care, and that's why they say the things they say. And the best way to move through or past is just communication. To let them in, to show them, like, okay, well, I'm doing it.
Yeah,
Even though,
regardless. Yeah,
right, and you taught me that.
yeah,
I think that's the point
yeah,
where you're like, you taught me that. You taught me to go for what I wanted, put every ounce of myself into what I love. I'm just following the rubric.
yeah, for
So,
sure. What would your advice be for people, I guess, who still have those conversations with their family where they're telling, like, for example, like, mom, dad, like, I know what you're saying, but this is what I want to do. But they're still, it's getting to them. Like, they might still have that conversation, but they might go into their room and be like, maybe they're right. What would your advice be for those individuals?
I would say just have grace. Give yourself grace,
Yeah,
and give your parents, your caregiver, whomever,
yeah,
just a little bit of grace. The things they say might cut deep, but what's the 48-hour rule? Give yourself time to really unpack
yeah,
and understand maybe that their communication style might not be what you favor.
yeah,
You know, that's me being very politically correct about it. But essentially, I'm saying like, yo, just give it a minute.
yeah, for sure.
Not everybody's out to hurt you.
Yeah.
Even though it might feel that way because you've decided. But just take it as an alternative
Yeah.
of seeing.
Yeah, I think
of
there's
knowing.
ways to like turn that energy into something as a motivating factor. I think, like you said, right, us being young, we think of it as like, oh, like coming at me kind of thing, but there's a hidden message behind what they're trying to say.
Right, and they're also experienced.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, sometimes like, yes, you're young, you're vital, like but they've lived twice your lifetime,
for
maybe even
sure.
three times.
Yeah, literally.
How could you think you know better? You know,
Exactly. They've been there already.
they've been there.
Yeah.
My parents have survived war, so I think I think about those moments.
Yeah.
I think about just giving it a second.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome advice. Now, you've passed that point. You've decided to do this. I'm curious about your first ever competition kind of thing. And the reason why I'm curious is because, in my opinion, I find that dance could be a very subjective topic. You know, some people might look at your moves and be like, I don't necessarily agree with how you're feeling this beat, or I don't really agree with that move.
Yeah.
Going into your first battle competition, was your mind more so like, okay, I'm gonna try to cook something up that people might like, or was it more so, I'm gonna do what I feel in this music? And how do you stay true and how do you stay strong to that? You know?
So when you start street dance, there's almost like a set of rules. You know, there's a guide, there's
Yeah.
a way to be, right? And you have this moment where you're thinking, do I just do what I've learned or do I add myself?
Yeah.
But then is adding myself taking away from the rules of this thing, right? So if you can imagine, I'm dancing hip hop, but I want to be myself. I want to do things that don't necessarily look like the foundation
Yeah.
of this dance. But then are you really doing the dance?
Yeah.
And that's a question I know that a lot of people have in their first battle or whatever. So I remember entering and I blanked.
Yeah. I mean, it's your first.
Yeah, foundational moves and fundamentals out the door.
Yeah.
I just blanked.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just went in and moved my body. And was it hip hop? I don't know. You know,
It was something.
I left it up to the judges. You know, and like you said, it's subjective. This
Yeah.
person has a specific way. They have biases. No matter how much we want to get rid of them and say that we're
Yeah.
a blank slate, there's still something in the back of your head saying, I like this way of moving over
Yeah.
this and so on and so forth. It's just unconscious. So I left it up to that subjective nature. And, you know, it's my first one. I'm not going to take it to heart.
Yeah.
I did go home and say, dang,
Yeah.
I'm never going to get beat like that again. Right? Or I don't want to get beat like that again. Because trust me, it did take some time until I did actually win my first one and by myself. But yeah, it was a blur.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember the scenario, the venue, who I was with, but everything after that, unless you show me footage, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the subsequent battles after that, it was that feeling of like, okay, let me conform and do in the form, in the design of the body, like let me do what is hip hop,
Yeah.
house, popping, whatever. But then as you progress, you just come into your own.
Yeah.
You understand your body and
Yeah.
how it feels with the music.
This
Now,
is like who I am. This is how I feel it.
right.
Right.
And then finally I get to the point where I feel comfortable, like I'm not thinking anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just doing.
Yeah.
And now I can really communicate with music. I can, I can dissect layers. I can go from this vocals to
Yeah. Yeah.
backbeat, downbeat, whatever, And I think that's very much where I'm at, and that's why I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Because music is something I've always loved, and to be able to be a physical representation of it, it's a high honor.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know?
very special, something that you can't really see in many other things as well. You said that's how you kind of approach it now. Do you still come across, how do I phrase this? I guess adversity as far as I'm sure there might be still people who kind of come up to you or look at your stuff and be like, I
Oh
don't really.
yeah.
How do you respond to that now? Right?
Well, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You know, I think that the what I preach is that music, let's say hip hop music, is regional. Every region, every part of the world geographically,
Yeah.
they have a version of rap or whatever that they enjoy more than the other. And depending on that, the dances that attach themselves to that sort of music is going to be different.
Yeah.
We have different value systems
For sure.
already. You know,
Yeah.
what the eye likes in a certain, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So what I do is that I remind myself that every time I dance,
Yeah.
there's going to be someone in the room who just won't get it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it means that there's a uniqueness, there's a niche, you know? To try to appeal to a whole room is to remove what makes you special.
Yeah.
Is to become just sort of this cookie cutter, right? This mold, that whatever. And that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
We talked about it briefly at the beginning, like it's rare to see someone who's like enjoying themselves,
Very hard. Very rare. It's
you
not a
know?
lot. And I think, like you mentioned, I see that the beauty of things like music and dancing is the fact that there's no right or wrong answer. You can express however you want it. Right?
Exactly.
So I think you definitely made a good point in terms of like you can't satisfy everyone, right?
No.
You don't need to satisfy everyone.
No.
If you like what you're doing, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's where it's at. So now it seems like you've built this mindset of how to respond to adversity. My question is on the topic of dancing, on the profession of dancing, how do you respond to like uncertainty? For example, specifically, I want to talk about the Corona
Yay.
pandemic. It was a tough
Wait.
time for obviously everyone.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because I was there. I've seen you. There's a lot of challenges that you had to come across.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you, and how was your response during that stage? Did you have any point where you're like, "Damn, maybe this isn't it," or how do you like
Oof.
fight against that and be like, "I know it's tough, but this is what I'm trying to do."
Wow. I think, yeah, as a global community, street dancers, the entertainment industry was hit hard,
Yeah,
right? Especially something like competitive dance battles or events. You're in person, you're feeling the life and the vitality in the room, and you respond to it. And so to be denied that,
yeah,
you know, there's so many question marks that come up. We start to question if this is really what it is for you,
yeah.
and so on and so forth. And like you said, you were there. You heard many a conversation about like, or just recalling what it used to be,
Yeah.
where I was at, what I was doing, you know, before it all happened. And you know, across the board, a lot of us felt the same way. But I think in the detour, it was always going to be a detour.
Yeah.
It was just sort of this deviation and just following the flow of life. But it was always going to branch back in my head. And what I thought was, this is an opportunity. At first, it didn't seem like it, but this is an opportunity to become versatile.
Right.
How many points within the dance are you really mastering
Right.
or striving to master? Are you teaching? Are you choreographing? Are you performing on stage? Is it theater? You know what I mean? Is it commercial work? What is it that you really, you know, are honing? And not only that, what is the message?
Yeah.
Is it longevity? You know, what is it that you want people 10, 20 years down the line to remember about you and your dance? And these are the questions I'm asking myself. And I took that time to really solidify, to pinpoint and say, 20 years down the line, I want to be remembered as the person who shook the room
Yeah.
every time. You know what I mean? Like a person who moved and you could see the music. You know, it seems like yes, this is what we should be doing, but again, like we said, it's rare
Yeah.
to commit yourself to that, to study music, which is something that it seems like dancers should do, but to like music theory, to trace the, like, what is it, ethnomusicology, big word, but
Yeah.
like understanding the roots of each sound, where it comes from, like this informs my dancing.
Right.
And this is where I'm at right
Yeah.
now from that period of uncertainty,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And it all started with like, I like samples. I like figuring it out, like this song came from this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it becomes archiving,
Right.
you know, this music video, it snowballed for
Yeah.
me. And then I found a way to just tie it all together. And as the universe would have it, this opportunity gets laid in my lap that allows me to go to a place that there's opportunities galore to do exactly that, and to reach out to the community and say, this is what I'm interested in. If anybody else is feeling that, or if you have ever found yourself aligning with the way I move,
Yeah.
this is what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's been great so far.
Yeah. And it's crazy how you mentioned that because I think that's like a clear representation of what happens in life in the universe when you decide to do what you want to, what you love. I briefly had this conversation in the other episode as well, where it's like, if you're doing something that you love, pursuing something that you love can still be probably the most challenging thing. It's not always sunshines and rainbows, in my opinion, because
Hell no.
just because you're doing something love, I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty, like you said. Pandemic was one of them. But that power that gets you through that is the fact that you're doing what you love. And I feel like the universe kind of knows where it's like, this is what she loves, this is what she wants to do. It'll still find its way back
For sure.
in some way.
Yeah.
And from what I'm hearing, it only elevated you to the next level because you started off as dancing, hip hop dancing, and then through the lockdown, you've gotten so versatile in terms of different types of styles.
Yeah.
And I guess, basing off that, would you say you had this more motivation of like, I'm ready when we're back to,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of doubled down.
yeah,
It was a period of uncertainty, but then, it's a period of reflection.
yeah,
You get a chance to really take in what you've done. And, I'm not going to exaggerate my importance. I'm not going to say, oh, I've done this for the city, I've done that. That's not me. But I know that I'm an example at this point.
For sure.
I'm an example for people are looking to me as a wayfinder. And I take that seriously.
right,
And in all of that, I just said, you know what? 10 toes down. We're not moving. You know what I mean? And like to be talked about in the certain spaces that, I was being spoken of. I was like, I'm doing something right.
yeah,
This is not the time to shy away and run and hide. No, this is the time to go. It's been working well. Let's work even harder. So, yeah, it was wild, but I'm so glad that it happened because the purpose is renewed.
yeah. Now, from that point on, how did you kick things back? How did you get back into it? I feel like in general, the lockdown slowed down everything.
Yeah.
Especially even coming back into things, even business and opening up, like creatives. It was hard, especially with a lot of like creatives and entrepreneurs or like freelancers coming back into the process, finding gigs, and it's hard. It's not something we got used to that life cycle of being locked out.
Yeah. You know what? I think that in the doubling down, a lot of folks, and at the time we were all had free, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were just watching. We're watching each other's space. you
Yeah,
know? I think in the doubling down that I did in that time and just removing myself, so let's say from social media, my presence, and focusing on what I wanted to communicate, piqued a lot of the interest of the global community. And so in the time thereafter, everyone's waiting for you to go, boom, this is
Yeah.
where I left off. Let's kick
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But I shifted. Instead of doing the thing that I'm used to, I chose to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I chose to go into a field or a realm of dance that was left of what
Yeah.
I'm known for. And in doing that, it communicates like this is someone who's committed to
Right.
changing the narrative and,
Yeah.
and constantly is trying to rework the matter.
Right.
And I think in that I caught people's eyes. And so now I'm being approached rather than having to search.
Yeah.
And it's because I consolidated and I made sure that what it is I'm about, you're coming to me for me. You're not coming because, oh, I fit the description.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No.
I don't know if I'm bragging in
No.
that 2-3 seconds, but that's what it feels like, right? It feels like you're being sought out because you're Kosi,
Yeah.
rather than you're being sought out because you dance.
Yeah. Or you
hip-hop.
checklist. It's not
No.
that.
People are going, I see an interest, you have an interest in jazz and the way that it, intersects with street dance. I would love for you to talk about that. Things like that, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so people are calling me by name. And I think that's, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It feels wonderful. Because you're like, man,
Yeah. And now you're at a
Big
point where
deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
now you're at a point where it's like you have so much tools. You're so versatile. And I guess, that comes down to what's next.
woo!
You know?
Wow. I can't tell you that I know. Right? I've always been whatever happens, happens, but I've been slowly shifting into sort of cultivating a niche for myself and seeing what works, what doesn't. I had one iteration of something called listening session where it was just a night for us to have an intimate vinyl experience.
Awesome.
Folks just came in and we listened to sort of like the origin records of hip hop and R&B and
hard.
soul. And if we work it out, I might have one here at Recess.
That's dope.
But yeah, we had it and it was a banging success.
Yeah.
So I really want to keep working at the integration or the intersection between music and dance and deepening that connection for not only myself but people around me. Yeah.
Really bringing the bigger community.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I got one last question.
Sure. Hit me.
It's a pretty general question.
Okay.
I'm just asking because, it's been 10 years since you've been dancing.
Right.
What's dance to you now?
Oof. Dance is liberation. It's seconds of freedom strung together, whether loosely or tightly wound. They're just moments where I can be the truest version of myself. And I guess I could say that freedom and liberation only mean so much when you understand the limits of it. And I'm coming from a place where, I didn't get to dance as much as possible, or, I was told that what I do where I'm from has no place in street dance, and all of this. But when I finally found that spark, the connection between the two, I never looked back. So,
Just be
Yeah.
you, live you, do you.
hell yeah.
It's all your story.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Well, Kosi,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Of course.
for coming here, sharing your story.
Of
It
course.
was honestly awesome to see you. I'm sure a lot of the listeners and viewers were happy to, listen as well. So
Hell
if you
yeah.
have anything going on, if you want to say any last words to the listeners, viewers.
The viewers, look, if anybody's out there and is really interested in the intersections of music, street dance, hip hop culture, the culture of dress, all of this, this is what I'm actively involved in and what I'm looking to push in the next little while. So please, young dancers, I'm an open book, hit me up and I would love to chat with you and just find ways of knowing together. It's not about me, it's about us. That's what culture is about.
Yes, sir. There you have it. It's about us. Hit her up. Peace, love.
Peace,
See
love.
y'all on the next episode.
Shout out,
Join
Peter.
us in turning that noise down.